Bats are revolutionary creatures that give humans a different perspective on looking at natural selection and evolution. One trait is that they are the only mammals that are capable of true flight, which is flight powered by muscular movement. Their scientific name, Chiroptera, translates to hand wing, which is another one of their traits. This thumb-like claw can be used to climb, crawl, and groom themselves. Lastly, their best trait is their ability to use echolocation, which is the sound they emit from their mouth or nose to help them find where objects are in space. The evolutionary origin of bats is still a mystery because the fossil record of bats is scarce. Bats did not evolve from flying ancestors, rather they developed the act of flying through evolution. Some cladistic analyses indicate that bats are most closely related to the Dermopterans, which include animals such as the flying lemur, which neither flies nor is a lemur. However, their ancestors may have been similar in some ecological aspects. Today's bats have 3 different shapes of skulls, which depends on their type of diet. Bats that eat a lot of nectar will have a longer snout. The bats that eat a lot of hard fruit have short snouts. Then the bats that eat other types of foods will have a mix between the 2 snouts. The selective pressure that caused these skull variations is the different types of food available in each of the different areas. The types of food cause variations in the skull because the bats that drink nectar don't need a strong jaw, but the bats eating hard fruit do. This type of natural selection is considered adaptive radiation because the bats have mutated to 3 different types of skulls instead of 1, and they did this to adapt to the new environment around them. The reproduction process is also affected because when bats who don't have the right skull for the area, then these bats have a hard time reproducing with the bats that have the ideal skull for their area. Since bats usually have 2 to 3 offspring a year, this depicts how long they take to evolve. Considering the first bat fossils were from 50 to 60 million years ago, the reproduction rate of bats is what slowed them from evolving much more and much quicker. The monophyly group of organisms that consist of all the descendants of a common ancestor show that they evolved from rodents, such as modern-day rats, and developed the gene of flying. As seen in their wings, they have hand-like bones, whereas birds have more of a long arm. Bats have fingers in their wings, and birds don't show major features that relate to their relatives having arms and usable hands and fingers. Studies on the evolution of bat relationships using DNA sequence data from 4 nuclear genes and 3 mitochondrial genes indicates that microbat families in the Rhinolophidae family, or the horseshoe bats, are more closely related to megabats than they are to other microbats. This implies that echolocation systems either evolved independently in Rhinophilus and other microbats, or were lost in the evolution of megabats. Data found by Queen's University of Belfast Biology and Biochemistry, UK, also rejects the flying lemur as the bat sister group, which implies that presumed shared derived characters for flying lemurs and bats are convergent features that evolved in association with gliding and flight. Bats geographically are very spread apart. Some bats migrate towards the cold weather, and some migrate towards warm weather. Bats that migrate along coastlines and over water are also sometimes blown far out to sea, with North American migrant bats finding themselves in Bermuda. Geographically translocated bats include hoary bats, red bats, Seminole bats, and silver-haired bats. This geographical reproductive barrier essentially spreads out different species of bats, denying them a way to reproduce and interbreed. Over 1,200 different species of bats have been identified. Their biggest variation comes to their size, with the smallest species being about 2 inches long and the biggest being 5 feet long. The bat's size depends on their environment, due to bats with mutations of a small or big size surviving and thriving in their respective environment depending on what benefits the species' survival the most. This is called selection. Various bat species' differing environments also affects their differing diets. 70% eat bugs and insects. Some rely on various types of fruit, and one species, vampire bats, feeds only on blood.
Understanding evolution is important with medicine and health. Understanding evolution helps us solve biological problems that impact our lives, such as disease and disease-causing genes. To control hereditary diseases in people, researchers study the evolution of disease-causing genes through the gene's time and knowledge of the gene that we know and have. Understanding evolution with health is also important because finding the right counterpart in order to prevent the disease from happening or just to get better, if it has already affected that person, is also achieved through the study of evolution. My family has a history of heart disease, and with that being said, a new study suggested that cardiovascular disease may be a consequence of evolution of mammals. The study shows that the same features of blood platelets that may have provided evolutionary advantage in early mammals is now making humans more liable to cardiovascular disease. As explained, understanding of biology is very important because knowing the risks and problems that may come up in the future can help you prepare and prevent them now. Food choices and other diet choices are informed by the understanding of evolution because when humans first started on the earth, eating raw meat and other foods were acceptable and would not affect them too badly. When humans evolved and gained more of an understanding on health, eating raw foods could be very deadly due to the diseases and other health issues that can come up from doing so. Humans evolved from being animals to being civilized people, and humans needed to change their eating style and lifestyle to basically adapt to their new surrounding and environment.